Ghosts on the Underground, London's most haunted stations. London, the 19th century, the most populous city on the planet. A hive of industry and progress, but with all the overcrowding and poverty that blights this rapid growth. The overstretched railways couldn't meet the huge demand of moving so many people around a dense city. The monumental solution was an industrial and cultural phenomenon which is familiar to all of us today, the London Underground. Of course, to scratch below the surface of London is to uncover a deep and often dark history. What ghosts were disturbed in the building of this labyrinth of railway tunnels that cut through the countless hidden graves? What haunts the increasingly ancient and forgotten places that have been witness to so much life and its loss? Further, London is today a metropolis seething with people where more recent events and tragedies related to those who built and used the lines seem to have left a mysterious and indelibly eerie mark. We take a look in this documentary, Ghosts on the Underground, London's Most Haunted Stations. Oval and Stockwell stations. Recounting a story from 1984, an underground trainee manager described an occasion he had to walk the line between Oval and Stockwell stations in order to understand maintenance procedures. Having travelled halfway, he came upon an elderly man in an opening known as South Island Place. The man was working and, strangely, appeared to be holding an old miner's lamp as he did so. The trainee spoke to the man briefly and commented that he thought such lamps had been made obsolete many years ago, only for the man to comment that he preferred them. The trainee continued his walk to Stockwell, reported to the line controller and, in doing so, mentioned his brief meeting with a maintenance worker at South Island Place. He was shocked to be told that no line workers were supposed to be there that night and was asked to return to South Island Place, where he would meet the line controller so that they could both recheck if the man was there for safety reasons. Of course, as you might expect, there was no such man, despite the trainee being adamant he had seen him. The trainee was later asked if he had heard the ghost stories surrounding South Island Place. He learned that, in the 1950s, a maintenance man working on a noisy compressor there had been hit by an approaching train that he had been unable to hear. It follows that the ghost of the worker haunts that location. But do you believe it is possible that the trainee could have had such a conversation? Nevertheless, reports of ghosts connected with maintenance workers who lost their lives are not uncommon. Embankment Station. Within a maintenance tunnel named Page's Walk, staff have recounted an eerie, cold feeling. Coldness, lights flickering and strange noises. Doors slam open and shut, but perhaps this is a factor of cold drafts blowing along the tunnel that emanate from the ebb and flow of trains at these depths, and the coldness may merely add to this sense that one is not alone. Whatever the truth, this is not a place to be left alone, for you would be constantly looking over your shoulder to see if someone or something really does come through the doors. King's Cross Station. On the 18th of November 1987, the station was the scene of a devastating fire where 31 people lost their lives. The cause was attributed to a lit match falling into and setting fire to an escalator machine room, combined with the then unknown fire phenomenon of the trench effect, which caused the fire to explode into the station. As a result, wooden steps on escalators were replaced with metal ones. In the entrance tunnel, the apparition of a distressed woman crying has been seen. She is clothed in modern jeans. As such, the most likely event to have caused such a spirit to manifest would have been the fire in the underground station in 1987. Bank Station. Bank, one of the oldest and busiest stations on the underground network, opened in 1884. In 1811, Philip Whitehead, a young clerk in the cashier's office at the Bank of England, was causing concerns for the bank's directors due to his carefree manner. They feared his debts would reflect badly on the bank, but wanted to help install a sense of responsibility with money. Whitehead, offended, gave up his job and gambled heavily on the stock exchange, running up huge debts. He tried to clear himself by presenting a forged bill at the bank. Arrested and convicted, he was subsequently executed at Newgate Prison. His sister Sarah was only a young girl at the time, so ex-work colleagues, friends and family sheltered her from what had happened to her beloved older brother. One day an indiscreet clerk let slip what had actually happened, and when she discovered the whole truth, the poor girl went out of her mind. Every day for the next 25 years, Sarah dressed from head to foot in black, hooded with a cape and shawl, asking at the bank, "Is my brother here today?" She would chat for a while, then, as she was leaving, say, "Give my love to him when he returns. I will call tomorrow." Known variously as the Black Nun and the Bank Nun, she was most well known as the Old Lady of Threadneedle Street, a nickname which passed to the bank itself after she passed away. She was later buried in the old churchyard that later became the bank's garden, and her ghost has been seen on many occasions in the past. On the 11th of January 1941, during the Second World War Blitz bombing, 111 people lost their lives when a German bomb hit the booking hall. with the blast travelling down the stairs and escalators to the platforms. The huge crater, 37 by 30 metres, causing the station itself to close for 2 months. There is also a story that describes a worker closing down lifts at the end of the night. He had checked an old wooden door lift that hadn't been used that day, only to walk away and hear knocking emanating from it. He was certain it wasn't the wind rattling the doors, and so kept walking. After a time there was a sudden slam of the doors, and if it was a ghost, it seems it didn't appreciate being ignored. It may be telling that one of the many entrances to the station used to house a church crypt, from where the bodies were removed in 1900 to provide a ticket hall. Beacon Tree Tube Station. This station is said to be haunted by a faceless woman with long blonde hair that several staff members have cited. The sounds of doors rattling unexpectedly that cannot easily be attributed to wind or trains passing have also been reported. It is thought that she could be the ghost of a lady who lost her life in a rail crash at the station in 1958 when a train missed a signal and collided into another, with the loss of 10 lives. Aldrich Station. Strand Station was built on the site of the Royal Strand Theatre, which had closed on 13th of May 1905 and been demolished. It was later named Aldwych following the renaming of other stations. Wartime efficiency measures led to the branch being closed temporarily in 1940, shortly after the start of the Blitz, and it was partly fitted out as an air raid shelter. The branch reopened on 1st of July 1946, but use was low, being a one-stop branch from the main Piccadilly line. The branch and station finally closed in 1994. Having been built on the site of the Strand Theatre, the tracks are said to be haunted by the ghost of an actress. Perhaps this is just wishful thinking given the former use of the site. What do you think? Covent Garden Station. Covent Garden Station is located in the heart of London's West End, close to Leicester Square. It is said that the ghost of actor William Terrace haunts the station.
The performance is about to start.
He was an English actor who died in 1897 at the hands of a mentally ill man carrying a knife at the stage door of the Adelphi Theatre, where he was appearing. This man, Richard Archer Prince, was sentenced to Broadmoor Asylum, a penalty considered mild at the time by the theatrical community. Perhaps this sense of injustice is why the ghost of William Terrace continued to haunt the theatre and the underground. The last reported sighting of William Terrace was in 1972. Bethnal Green Station. Bethnal Green Station was requisitioned in 1940 at the on-site of the first German Blitz bombing. Heavy air raids began in October and thousands of people took shelter there, often remaining overnight. However, usage of the shelter dwindled in 1941 as the Luftwaffe was redirected away from London and against the Soviet Union, although retaliation raids occurred. This was the case on 3rd of March 1943, after British media reported a heavy RAF raid on Berlin on the night of 1st of March. The air raid civil defence siren sounded at 8:17 p.m, triggering a heavy but orderly flow of people down the blacked out staircase from the street. A middle-aged woman and a child fell over, 3 steps up from the base, and others fell around her, tangled in an immovable mass which grew as they struggled to nearly 300 people. Some managed to get 3, but 173, most of them women and children, were crushed and asphyxiated. Some 60 others were taken to hospital. News of the disaster was withheld for 36 hours and reporting of what had happened was censored, giving rise to allegations of a cover-up. The story which was reported instead was that there had been a direct hit by a German bomb. It was not until 50 years after the disaster that a discreet commemorative plaque was erected at the site. The crush at Bethnal Green is thought to have been the largest single loss of civilian life in the UK in World War II and the largest loss of life in a single incident on the London Underground network. There have been various reports of ghosts following this tragic incident, particularly when the station is quiet, which must add to its eeriness. These hauntings have been experienced as the sound of women and children screaming. Would you be prepared to wander the platforms late at night to be scared by these bodiless screams? Greenwich Foot Tunnel. The Greenwich Foot Tunnel is a public highway that crosses for 370 metres beneath the River Thames in East London, linking Greenwich on the south bank with the Isle of Dogs on the north. The tunnel opened in 1902 and replaced an unreliable ferry service for passengers crossing the Thames to reach the dockyards for work. It was damaged substantially during the Second World War but was repaired and reopened once more to the public. Due to its depth beneath the river, it is a cold place throughout the year, and perhaps this is a fitting location for the chilling experiences that have been witnessed here. For it is sometimes told by people who have crossed through the tunnel that they have felt an eerie presence that has followed them from one side to the other. Do you think this could merely be the echoes reverberating from a creepy tunnel? Or do you believe that there could really be a presence here? Perhaps someone who lost their life in the building of the tunnel or its bombing during the Second World War. The Kennington Loop. The Kennington Loop is part of a track connected to the Northern Line in South London. Constructed in 1890, it allows branch line trains heading south to turn around in the tunnel and return on the opposite platform to head north. It is a very noisy trip through the loop, one which passengers are not allowed to make and even drivers find quite disconcerting. Drivers sometimes have to wait in the tunnel and have heard sounds of people walking along through the carriages and doors slamming shut. Perhaps this is merely people inadvertently caught in the train as it makes its journey through the loop. Or maybe it's something more sinister, for it is said that the noises are those made by a passenger who lost his life being dragged into the tunnel when trying to pass between carriages on a moving train. What do you think? Thank you for watching this ghostly documentary. If you enjoyed watching, please give us a like, subscribe and share.